So, good afternoon. How are we all going? Great. So we're up to the final part of our kind of chat show. And I get the great pleasure of interviewing, I won't say interrogating, but having curious questions for three really very special guests. And I'd like to invite them out now. I've been practicing how to say my first guest's name, and I've lost it. But I'm going to have a go. No, I'm going to forget. So I'd like to invite my brother Artem from Russia, if he would please come and join us on the stage. Would you give him a round of applause? And we can have the lights up here. Thank you. And hello, thank you. And secondly, I'd like to invite to the stage someone I've only met recently, but I felt like I've known her forever. And that's Tami Roos, who is originally from the United States of America and has been living some time in Australia with her husband, Paul, and working with some of the elite football teams and sports teams of Australia. Tami, you're here. Great. And finally, let me welcome onto the stage Mr. Ian Gawler, Dr. Ian Gawler, who is one of our great treasures in Australia, and you're going to know why in just a moment. Ian Gawler, please welcome him to the stage. Thank you. So, you've all been enjoying a little bit of magic from Harry? Yes? Okay. Our topic is real magic. Not that Harry doesn't do real magic, but we're going to talk about what is real magic. And that's when you can take crisis in your life and you turn it into gold. There's a saying, you know, that whatever is happening is really good. Doesn't always seem like it. And there's one saying that Steve Jobs from Apple said, you can only join the dots looking backwards. You can only see how life situations were meant to be when you look back in time. You go, for that. That's why that happened. Now it makes sense. So I have three very wise and big-hearted guests who are going to share a little their experience. So, Artem, sorry, I practice and I practiced your name. He said, you're the only person who ever could say my name, and then I forgot. But we had a very interesting conversation because you're a CEO of a major company in Russia. Now we know, can we have the house lights up, please? Yes. We know that the current economic environment, the political environment, and everything that's going on in the world is not in favor many times for the financial world. Now, can you respond spiritually? I'm very close to you. I'm going to come back a little. Can you respond spiritually when everything goes haywire, when the markets crash, when your competitor gets ahead of you, when the politics go mad? What happens?
नमस्कार, मुझे बहुत खुशी है कि आज हम साथ-साथ यहाँ हैं.
Very impressive.
And now back to your question. You know, actually, I'm holding high-level CEO positions over the last 10 to 15 years, and we have to work in a very intense and changing environment, and quite often we have very big upheavals from macroeconomics, from regulation. Sometimes exchange rate can be doubled overnight, and all that affects business very much. And in that situation, what my personal experience says, it's most important to keep mind cool and reasoning clear. And for that, we need two things together. First, it's a spiritual knowledge that is taught in Brahma Kumaris. And secondly, meditation to make that knowledge work on your own mental stage. And when you are a CEO of a company, it means you are responsible for all kind of performance, and you are responsible for all staff members and all kind of activities. Then your mental stage affects the most the mental stage of your team. And at the time of crisis, to have a cohesive team that is not in panic is the main issue for success and for overcoming all that negative business situations.
So you said a cool mind.
And clear reasoning.
Clear reasoning. And so how do you do that? Really, is it really true? So if the exchange rate doubles overnight, or the value of the ruble drops, and that impacts, how many people work in your company?
In my last position, I had 11,000 people.
11,000, depending on their livelihood for the direction and the success of the company.
Absolutely.
So how do you not go a little bit crazy when those things happen?
You know, that's a main aspect that is helping in that. It's knowledge of world drama.
What do you mean by knowledge of the world drama?
It means that everything goes in the best way. And you just have to do what you are supposed to do, what is right in that specific circumstances. And then everything will be okay. And to panic never helps solving troubles. And of course, not to panic, and it's natural for people to panic in tough conditions. Not to panic, for that a practice of meditation is the most important issue. And
do you meditate daily?
Yes.
Every day?
Yes, every day.
Yeah? Okay.
You don't believe me?
No, I
don't look like I'm meditating twice a year. Or
twice a year probably doesn't help, right? You'll panic if it's only twice a year. So do you find that in this world, and maybe Tami can help us with this too, because in this world of business and high performance, is it more common that people now are starting to integrate spirituality, meditation, mindfulness, these kinds of concepts, not just as concepts, but real practices and lifestyle in big business, in government? Are we finding more of that? Maybe both of you could respond to that for me.
Could you start, please?
Yeah, sure. Hello? No. Is this working?
Take this one.
Sorry. Yeah, no, it's a wonderful question. I think what I'm currently seeing in Australia, at least, and I watched some of the studies going around the UK and in the United States as well, that we're seeing a lot of companies starting to really look at wellness, because it's become wellness as an objective. I think that's due for a number of reasons, but there's been a lot more studies too linked to productivity, efficiency, and how their absenteeism drops. And there's numerous categories that start getting affected by bringing in wellness, which is really the meditation. So looking at that from that perspective, I think companies are starting to get there, but it's still a bit, I think they're dabbling right now. Mm-hmm. They're trying to really get there, but they're not really sure how to, I think, make that leap across, and understanding the big hang-up at the moment is not having enough time. So in a company space, trying to get the senior executives to lead by example, I think, is one sure way to really start to see a big shift across all companies. But if they could value that 10 minutes, and that's what I try to say to companies when I'm in there, if you can give 10 minutes, then that 10 minutes is going to equate to happier employees, better relationships, clearer thinking, sound reasoning, better focus, and on, but which also leads to greater productivity. So I think the relationship is they need to understand that it's actually about starting to love the mind and give it a rest.
Love the mind.
Love the mind.
Love the mind. There's an idea. And give it rest.
Yeah, I don't think for me, I guess, growing up in the United States, I was taught about physical activity. I was taught about getting enough rest, getting my, the 4 food groups and drinking enough water, but no one ever spoke about the mind. And I think that's the big change now that has to occur is looking at the benefits and changing the relationship. We talk about so much about our body and loving our body and that it's our temple and doing the right thing. But I think you can actually also have a conversation about, I need to love my mind.
Very nice.
It's a bit of a change, yeah.
Thank you, Tami. So, Artem, are you alone in this idea of the CEO who meditates? Or are you finding there's a lot of others as well?
You know that this idea of keeping some balance between heavy business life and normal life, that personal life, is gaining popularity all over the world, and in Russia it's the same. And many people practice some kind of simplified meditation, just empty their minds and trying to relax, and it's called mindfulness. That's kind of a movement. And many people become vegetarian. Mm-hmm. And in Russia as well, there are many vegetarian restaurants where people can eat some vegetarian food, can order, can delivery, and so on. And it's of course it's good, and it's very helpful because tension and stress is increasing day by day. And we don't see any reason for that to be reduced in the coming dozens of years and decades. And people have that thirst for real practice of relaxation and stress relief.
So for you, it's part of your toolkit, not just for your personal life, but absolutely for your professional life, for your life. That's the thing.
Yes, for me, it's a part of my lifestyle.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Artem. Thank you. And Tami, I know that you work with like football teams and adolescents, like teenagers. But this idea that crisis can be really a gift in life. When it doesn't feel like it, but it can be really a great opportunity. Have you had experience of that?
I think
a bit closer.
It's actually, I guess, to answer that effectively, yeah, the crisis can be one of the greatest blessings, because I think when people, sometimes they have a pain point, they come to this pain point in their life and then they need to do something about it, and that creates a big change. And that's one way that we look at it, and you can look back on it.
When you say pain point,
yes,
what do you mean by pain point?
So they've had a relationship breakdown, they've lost the job, something's happened in their life that actually drives them to then say, I just can't do this anymore, I've got to look for something else. And that's what we see a lot of, is people getting to the point of where they're at that crisis point. What my hope is that we don't have to get to that point, and that for people to really understand that meditation isn't, you don't do meditation or practice meditation because anything's broken, but you practice meditation so that you can get the best out of your life, so that you can live life to your fullest potential. So you walk out your door and you can actually embrace your day with vitality and optimism and happiness and the clarity of thinking, things that make our day. I don't think anyone in this room goes out their front door and says, I want to have a bad day. So I think it's, when in relation to talking to younger people, or be it an athlete, we all have professional lives and personal lives, and they get influenced greatly by whatever we're doing. But if we can practice just going and having, as we've heard all day, a relationship with our inner world, I just think the benefits will be huge.
Thank you, Tami. I think that's great. So you're saying it's part of your lifestyle, and you're saying it's part of your lifestyle. And of course, it helps you face crises. And you said to me, Artem, that things happen, but it doesn't really seem like crisis necessarily. So it's really not about management of pain and panic. It's choosing a different way of life, and that helps you face crisis. But it's about happiness, it's about fulfillment, and that's nourishing, loving your mind, loving your inner world and your spirit.
Yeah.
So, you want
and
to say?
I guess perhaps putting it personally back on myself.
Yeah.
So my journey in meditation began in 1999. And I went off to a Deepak Chopra primordial sound meditation workshop. And that was my first, I had no idea what meditation was. So maybe that helped me because I had zero expectations. But after that weekend, what I came to know was that I actually was going through myself, I guess I was completely depleted and I hadn't realized it. I was playing the role of trying to be super mom, super woman, which I know a lot of people get into. I just kept going and I didn't ask for help. So by engaging in meditation and taking up that practice, I started to realize things, and I could start seeing where I could change things subtly. As we've mentioned, the subtle world, like all of a sudden I knew how to put proper boundaries in place. And my life just started improving, so it's been my non-negotiable since then.
That's interesting. Meditation is your non-negotiable. That's your everyday.
Every day and evening.
So every day. Okay, Ian, the pressure's on. I met Ian Gawler about almost 30 years ago. And it's how I came to meditation. I won't tell you that long story, but 3 weeks before my husband died from cancer, I went to a retreat that Ian was running. He was really one of the few experts in the world at that time, not just from intellectual point of view and research, but from his own experience, who knew how to face the journey of illness, confront the challenges, and help people pass through to the very final stages. So I went there and I went to a workshop that he ran. And he said many things, but one statement stayed with me, which was, you never give up on anyone recovering from an illness. But if you're with them at the time when they're passing, you can help them. And that really helped me because 3 weeks later, my husband passed away. And I got to be in such a beautiful experience with him because of this man. So you know about how crisis can be real gold, real magic. Ian, can you share with us something from your experience, your wisdom?
Sure, thanks, Carolyn. And all these years later, it's amazing that we should meet in such an environment and be sharing an interaction with so many people. Perhaps to relate what you're saying to your introduction, talking about magic, it would seem there are two types of magic. There's magic based on illusion and what appears to be magic that's based on truth. So Harry's given us a wonderful example of magic based on illusion, and in that illusion something happens that we don't understand but we take to be real. Magic that's based on truth, often we describe as a miracle because we don't understand it. Something happens that we don't understand. If we understood it, we'd just say it was truth and we understand it and it's just common garden everyday happening. But when we use the word magic or miracle, something's happened that we don't understand, we don't have an explanation for. And I think in current times, and it speaks to the topic of our conference, so many people have, in a sense, forgotten who they really are. They've misidentified. They've sort of, instead of identifying with the truth of who they are, they're identifying with this persona, this ego, this outer form, you know, this body, the jobs we have, the roles we play, and they get caught up in that and they miss the truth. And the truth is that at our essence, we're these incredibly loving beings, but on the outside we can be really quite horrid. And unfortunately, the world seems to be going through a phase where those difficult aspects of being a human being have got something of an ascendance. And as has been talked about today, it seems like in that cyclical nature, where we're in the fortunate place, and certainly we're getting a good sense of it today, of just how many people are interested in reawakening to who they really are and living from their place of truth. And so with any luck, what we take to be magic before too long might seem to be more commonplace.
So that's very beautiful. I love that idea. Magic based on illusion, magic based on truth, which we call miracles, because we don't understand how it happens. And this idea that I think is, you know, a through line, that we've forgotten who we truly are, this essence. And when we connect with that, is that when the magic happens?
Yeah, and I think that's, for a lot of people, their outer lives are so busy these days, they just don't get the opportunity to connect with who they really are. We get caught up, we get swept along in the busyness of life, and there's so many good things in life, and there's difficult things, and they all take our attention. So unless you have a practice like meditation where you stop the busyness, you stand back, sit back, and reconnect with who you really are, reconnect with your own truth, then your whole life can pass you by. And what seems to happen for many people, I think perhaps particularly in the Western world, you know, I come from Australia, I think for many people it's actually a crisis in their personal life, either a personal crisis or crisis of somebody very close to them that they care about, that causes them to interrupt that busyness of life and almost demands that they step back and think what's important to them. So certainly in the work I've done over many years with people dealing with cancer, on the surface of it, a diagnosis of cancer can be quite horrible, and certainly there's many difficulties that can flow from that. But on an inner level and a more meaningful level, for many people like myself, because I had cancer when I was 24 and that's how I had my leg amputated, for many people what the crisis does is give them the opportunity to step back from their life, to really think about what's important and reorientate their life more in line with their truth than with their ego and their outer world.
Thank you, Ian. So I think we're saying if there is a crisis, don't panic. It's a chance to step back, because it's usually the ego who panics, and it's a chance to step back. And it's a pain point, Tami, but it's a gift at the same time. And you can underline it as your not negotiable, this inner journey, this inner connection.
And I think also it's important to say that in stepping back, it doesn't lead to a passivity. It doesn't lead to you being passive. In fact, from that stillness of meditation and connecting with your truth, and the essence of that comes a great deal of energy and a clarity, like we were hearing about, that actually gives you a clear sense of what you as an individual might be able to do that will be helpful.
I would love to sit with these wonderful souls for, really, I think we could have a number of coffees and long, long chat. And we don't have any more time this afternoon in this place, but would you thank them for me? Because the really rich experience from all different walks of life. So Artem, Tami, and Ian, thank you so much, all of you. And yes, thank you.
Thank you.